The children may His presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning and the evening, in your coming and your going, in your evening, rejoicing. He is for you. 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 He is for you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, who ordered the wind? I just want to know, who ordered the wind? Skip did? Total Chamber of Commerce Day, right? All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to introduce our elected officials. And since we're at a sporting event, there's only one way to introduce your elected officials. And now, your local elected officials. Starting off, Congresswoman Debbie Lesko. Arizona State Senator Rick Gray. Arizona Senator Sean Kerr. State House Representative Joanne Osborne. Arizona House Representative Frank Carroll. City Surprise Mayor Skip Hall. Vice Mayor City Surprise Allison Klein. Councilman Chris Judd. Councilman Patrick Duffy. Dysart Superintendent Quinn Killis. Natterburg Superintendent, the Dr. Aspasia Angelo. Board President Arafria Trey Terry. Dysart Board Member Crystal Chafin. Dysart Board Member Tracy Sawyer Subel. Dysart Board Member Christine Pritchard. And special guest, Surprise City Manager Bob Wigeloff. And Surprise Police Chief Benny Pina. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's all of them. All right, I got my blood boiling now. I'm fired up. All right, purpose of this event. So this event started off when we were hosting National Day of Prayer, And one of the pastors' feedback we got is they enjoyed the opportunity to meet other pastors in the community at that event. So that was a springboard for bringing this event together. And then we just hooked Mayor Skip Hall into this event to be kind of the keynote speaker for it. So what we would like you to get today is to meet 2 or 3 pastors in the community that you haven't met before. And then also at the end, find an elected official that you're going to commit to praying for, because our elected officials go through a lot. In fact, speaking of that, I'm going to have Congresswoman Debbie Lesko come up and ask her to share a few words from Washington. So give her a hand.
Well, thanks a lot, Ray. We need you at rallies or something with that introduction of people. I felt so important in that one. Listen, I just want to thank all of you for being here today and for what you do for our communities. Washington, D.C. is a spiritually dark place. It really is. And I can tell the difference when I fly in there and I'm there. It's very dark, oppressive. And when I come back to Arizona, where I'm happy again, now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of very important things that we have to do in Washington, D.C., but the one thing I ask of you is to pray. Pray for our country. Pray that we will return to some semblance of civility. And there's a lot of angry people out there, and I'm sure all you pastors deal with this each and every day. They're very angry, and they don't know what to do. And the one thing they can do is turn to God. And I usually tell people that are so angry, I go to meetings, they're so angry, they want to overthrow the government, they want to, if I go to a Republican meeting, they want to impeach Biden, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, well, God's in control. God's in control. And for whatever reason he had the reason to put these people at this time in power. And so if you would just continue to pray for elected officials, to give me wisdom, give me strength, I would really appreciate it. And just very quickly, I want to tell you what I do, because most people have no idea what I do. I serve in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., in the U.S. Capitol, and I have an office in Washington, D.C., where we sponsor legislation, vote on legislation which can become law, and then I have an office right here in Surprise, and there we help people that live in our congressional district with federal agencies. That could be Social Security, Medicare, veteran benefits, IRS issues, post office issues, immigration issues. So Keith, right there, Keith, raise your hand, is my district director. He runs that office here in Surprise. And we have thousands of people that reach out to us all the time, and we're able to help them. So thank you. God bless you. Have a great breakfast.
Thank you, Congresswoman. All right, next thing I want to speak about real quick, invocation at City Council. A few years ago, City Council, by one vote, voted to have invocation before their council meetings. And with that, they took a bold step to do that. Now, we in the Christian community, we haven't had enough people sign up. To be quite frank, it's sad. We really need to get people signed up to pray before City Council. There's only, about 20 or so meetings a year. So we can do that. I have a sign-up sheet I'm going to pass around with dates available. And so sign up for the dates. The only requirements are, of course, that you live in Surprise. And then you can only do 3 a year, but you can't do back-to-back. So I'm going to start this and pass it around. And let's get that filled up. So that way they don't have to worry about people not showing up or not having that. The second thing, thanks, Lynn. The next thing on there, I have a sign-up sheet for National Day of Prayer. National Day of Prayer, we've done it for about 4 or 5 years, right out by City Council. And the idea behind that is not to be promoting a church in the community, but promoting the Church of Christ. And so our desire is to have all churches involved in that, all churches inviting their members to come participate in that. And so there's a sign-up sheet if you want to participate in that, and we'll get you guys on the prayer list. Different things. We'll have activities to be done. So I appreciate you guys signing up for that. And with that, let's get to the mayor. So the mayor, he grew up in Idaho. He has 3 children, 5 grandkids. He has a business degree from Seattle University. Vietnam veteran, received the Bronze Star. He started service in Surprise by volunteering on the P&Z committee, elected to council in April 2008. He won his elections as a councilman by 70+%, appointed to mayor November 20th of 2018. And I can tell you, when he was appointed mayor of Surprise, unity came to the city. And he won the election in 2020 with over 90% of the votes. So may I introduce to you Mayor of Surprise, Skip Hall.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me today and for making time to be here. As pastors, you know the importance of gathering. Hebrews 10:24 reminds us that we should meet together so that we might encourage one another, and that we should think of ways to motivate each other to acts of love and good works. I know we can all use some encouragement and motivation as we start another year watching and experiencing the effects of COVID on our community and our congregations. I pray that God speaks to your heart today and that your strength is renewed by the connections you make while you're here. As people of faith, we know that our greatest source of encouragement comes from trusting in God's faithfulness. That is what gives us hope, and hope gives us strength. Looking again in Hebrews, we find a command to hold tightly without wavering to the hope we profess. Why can we hold on to hope? The Bible tells us because God can be trusted to keep his promise. Trusting God brings courage in scary situations, peace in the midst of chaos, and hope when you can't see a way out. There are so many stories in the Bible of people who had to trust God when the command seemed absurd and the situation impossible. I love the story of Gideon, whose people were under the rule and oppression of the Midianites. God called Gideon into battle against them, even though his clan was the weakest in the tribe, and he was the least in his family. When Gideon questioned God, the Lord replied, quote, "Go with strength you have. I'm sending you. I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man," unquote. I love that God commands him to go with the strength he has. God doesn't need anything from Gideon except trust. So Gideon gathered an army of 32,000 men to fight 135,000 Midianites. Even though the size of this matchup already favored the enemy, God told Gideon he had too many warriors. In the end, God whittled down his army to send him into battle with just 300 men, and they won. Trust is vital in our relationship with God. Without it, we don't take the leaps of faith that produce the fruit, favor, and miracles of God. Without trust, Gideon doesn't defeat the Midianites. David doesn't strike down Goliath, and Esther doesn't save the Jews. There's a leadership book called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey that identifies 2 components of trust: character and competence. Covey says that when we don't trust someone, it's because we don't trust their character or their competence, or both. He adds that trust always affects 2 measurable outcomes: speed and cost. When trust goes down in a relationship, on a team, in a company, with a customer, speed decreases with it. Everything takes longer. Simultaneously, costs increase. The redundancy of the processes costs more, and with everyone checking up on everyone else. In my work as mayor, I've seen this happen. It's why it's important to be open and transparent with our residents, and to do so what we say we will do with good stewardship. That type of character and competence builds trust, and more gets done. It's interesting how this is also true when you apply it to our relationship with God. Think of the Moses and the Israelites. God told them he was giving them the promised land, but they didn't trust God enough to enter it for fear they would be killed. So they waited in the wilderness for 40 years. The speed went down and the cost was great. They lost 40 years of life in a land flowing with milk and honey to be stuck in a desert simply because they didn't trust God. If we go back to Covey's points that the two components of trust are character and competence, we should be able to trust God fully. We can be confident in God's character. He is a good Father. James 1:17 says, quote, "Whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in the heavens. He will never cast changes or he never changes or casts a shifting shadow." We can also be confident in God's competence. He is the creator of all things, the universe and every intricate deal within it. He has never lost a battle. John 16:33 says, "Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart, because I have overcome the world." End quote. As a city council, we have a lot of responsibility to set policy and direction for this community. I have to trust God to provide me with wisdom and the direction to make the best decisions. I have to trust him because I can only go with the strength I have. And sometimes the battles or decisions require more resources than I have on my own. What do you need to trust God for today? How can you open your hands and release to him? No matter what view you have in front of you today, no matter how hopeless things may seem or defeated you may feel, commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. Thank you.
All right, and then next up to speak real quick will be Seth Dyson, the City Surprise. Great volunteer opportunities coming. And as he's coming, I just want to say thank you for all of our volunteers that helped put this together and make it happen. John Cavaletto. John, where are you? Right over here. Lynn Collins, over there. Shauna Daigle, back there. I want a special thanks to CCV that gave us these tables, chairs, linens, and the heaters. Yeah. And then Travis from the City of Surprise for the food, One Step Beyond. And Spencer's Place for the coffee. So just give them a quick hand. And with that, Seth Dyson talking about New Leaf.
Good morning, everybody. I couldn't hear you. It was really cold, so let's get those voices out. Good morning, everybody. All right, that made me feel warm, so thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I have the privilege of working for the City of Surprise, and what we try to do is just work with you in dialogue to try to help many families, many individuals that might need some help. So I've got two of my friends with me here, Lord Garciano and Liana from the Northwest Library. We have a bunch of community resource guides that we'd love to give you in English and in Spanish. So if you're looking for volunteer opportunities or to connect people with resources, we have these available. We'd love to give them to you. So we have lots of bags ready to go today. And the Northwest Library and all of our libraries are there to serve you and your parishioners and your congregants. So please don't forget about the library and the great things that they do. We wanted to mention a couple of great opportunities coming up. So and unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that are really under pressure with housing right now. So I think many of you know about 25% of our community rents, and our rents are going up just like everywhere else. And so supply-demand issues, we get that. But those of you that minister to the community here who rent, there's a lot of pressure. So we're finding people needing extra places to stay or extra resources. So our resource center is there to help, but we're proud to announce a partnership with a New Leaf, who couldn't be here today, but with the Toronis family. So raise your hands if you're familiar with the Mustard Seed property here in the city of Surprise. So now I know how many people have been here for a long time, because the Mustard Seed has been a project long time coming. The Toronis family that runs the Red Eagle Tortilla Factory has entered into a partnership with the city, and we in turn have entered into a partnership with the New Leaf to start a little housing support center. If people need housing, we're there to help them out. So we're building that out right now. Later this fall, we'd love to invite you to ribbon cutting to get people into the housing programs. It's going to be meant for primarily women and their children, their families, but anyone can come to the coordinated entry site to get help. It's the first time in the City of Surprise history we'll be able to do that. 7 units of housing that we'll be able to offer. So thank you for your support of that. And so now the ask. I know you serve every day in the community. I know that your heart is there to make sure our neighbors are strong, healthy, and resilient. We will need your help with the Housing Support Center. So if you've, in your group, in your church, your synagogue, whatever, if you can make a meal for the women and their families one night a month, one night a week, if you can serve by donating food, supplies, clothing, this will be an opportunity to not to have to go to Phoenix to do that. It's our opportunity to serve our Surprise residents first. So as we work to build civility and community, let's start in our own hometown. And so in advance, I say thank you for your help with that. Much more information to come. If you like more info, I'll be sitting right over there and I'd love to talk to you about it. Thank you, Ray, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning. Is this all right? It's not as loud up here as it is out there, I guess. My name is Cosmo Panzetta, and I lead a congregation here. The name is, in Hebrew, is Temple Beit Hadash, or House of New Beginnings. We are what you might call a Messianic congregation, but labels are weird because different things mean different to different people. I'm the first generation born in the United States, son of an Italian Jewish immigrant who gave his life to the Lord in Italy long before I was born. And he was kicked out of his house and began serving the Lord in ministry. And so I had the privilege of being raised in a home where I knew what it was to be who I was as a Jewish kid, but I also knew who I was as a son of the Lord, as a child of God. I grew up in church. I grew up in the Assemblies of God, and we are an Assemblies of God, a Messianic congregation. But our heart is to make Yeshua known, to make Jesus known to our Jewish people and to the nations. Because God has called, so when we serve sorry, I've got notes here, but they're blowing all over the place. This last couple years has been challenging. And a couple of years ago, the Lord began to stir within us, within me and in our leadership, that something new was coming. In fact, several years ago when our name became House of New Beginnings, I had in my mind an idea of what that meant. You know how you think, this is what it means, and you envision things, and then it looks very different than what you ever imagined. I imagine when the people had read Isaiah 53 for years and years before Yeshua ever came, they had one picture of what that meant, or they were like, I don't even know what to do with that. And then he came and he died and he rose again, and nobody saw that was the way to deliverance. They thought it was conquer the Romans, lay their lives down. But Yeshua said, I'm going to lay my life down. Salvation comes, if you want to follow after me, deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. That's the path to which we've been invited. And so as we minister to our Jewish people, our desire has always been to create a context, to develop an environment in which Jewish people could come and hear the gospel in a way that's unimpeded. there are certain words we use, language we use, or environments that can get in the way of actually hearing the message. And so we're more culturally Jewish. We celebrate the feasts. We have our services on Shabbat. That's what we've always done. But it's never been about those things. It's never been about making people Jewish. It's always been about saying Jewish people can believe in Yeshua and still remain fully Jewish. It's not a contradiction in terms, right? But what God has called us to do, here's the thing that people don't understand. I'm just going to put the notes away and just go, how's that sound? Here's the thing that people don't understand, is even growing up in church, people you'd hear about the Jews as God's chosen people. And immediately when you hear of chosenness, you think of something to do with favoritism or preferential treatment. But it's never been about favoritism. It's never been about preferential treatment. It's always been about calling and purpose. God chose Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He said, and I want to bless you, not so you'll be like a cul-de-sac of blessing, but so you'll be an avenue of blessing. You'll be an off-ramp of blessing, so that through you, all the families on the earth will be blessed. It's an early version of For God So Loved the World. God chose the Jews because he loved the nations and because he chose this people to be a light to the nations. And that was our calling. And we failed. We failed time and time again because our calling was to reflect the character of God. He says, a people called by my name. And when he talks about my name, he's talking about his reputation. And he says, don't lift up my name and my reputation, my brand, in emptiness and vain. When you lift it up, walk in my ways. It's like if you had a restaurant and you went to serve something and you said, this is, I love True Foods in Scottsdale, and you say, hey, this is True Foods lasagna, but now I've mixed in all my gross ingredients in it and said, taste it. I've misrepresented that brand, and you'll never go eat the real thing because of what I've presented before you. And so for years and years, what the Lord was saying was, you're to lift up my name. And Moses said, show me your glory. Show me your glory. And he said, you want to know my glory? And he pronounced his name. And he said, the Lord, abounding, overflowing in love and in truth, overflowing in compassion and kindness. He says, the foundation of my throne is righteousness and justice. It says, the Lord is close. He's close to the broken. He is the defender of widows. He is the defender of orphans. He cares for the outsiders. And so when we lift up his name, we're to lift up who he is. And so when people talk about taking the Lord's name in vain, it's not simply about using his name in a vulgar way. Of course, that's not a good thing. But when we lift up the name of God, when we lift up the name of Jesus and we say, this is who Jesus is, and then we mix in all our disgusting ingredients of self and my way, then a world that so desperately needs him says, no thanks, I don't want your restaurant. I don't want what you have. The problem was the Jewish people in the Hebrew scriptures stopped caring. They didn't care. They lost sight of their purpose was to be a light to the broken. And when we stop caring about how we're representing God to a lost and broken, hurting world, to people who are on the other side of an aisle, to people who believe completely differently than us, and they're running from us. Jewish people, they haven't rejected Jesus because of Jesus. They've rejected Jesus largely because of people lifting up his name in a way that didn't represent him at all for centuries and centuries. And now there are generations around us that when we lift up and we say, hey, I'm a Christian, and they associate that with something very different than what Jesus ever stood for. And they're running away from us. And okay, got it, yellow. I'm almost done. Lord, you spoke about Gideon. This morning, my kids, as I was going, they said, where are you going, Dad? I said, I'm going to the mayor's prayer breakfast. They said, you? Why you? I said, I don't know. Because they're like, who are we? We're Gideon, And the Lord called us a couple years ago when I thought I knew what a new beginning looked like. We went into 2020, and the word the Lord had given us was this coming year, be bold and be brave. And we had one idea of what that meant. It was very different than what we thought it meant. And for years, 10 years we've been leading this congregation, and we've been meeting every week and every Shabbat and midweek service and having people who love our message come, but very few people that we need to get to, they're not coming to us. And okay, I'm almost done. So God called us this last couple years to step out and do something bold and brave, and not because of financial hardship, but we sold our building, and it was hard for me. It's hard, but now we meet in different ways daily. We're meeting daily online. I'm doing a daily live stream. Weekly, we have action groups that are meeting that are small groups, but we call them action groups because usually small groups turn inward and say me, focus on me, and we want to make sure that we're walking out in action to reach the lost, to minister to the broken. And then we do quarterly gatherings as a whole because God's calling us to a new way of doing things. And it's been brutally hard and super unpopular at times. And sometimes you feel like Gideon going from 30,000 down to 300, but you say, Lord, I'm going to walk in obedience and faithfulness because we're going to lift up who you are. Let's display your character, your beauty, your love to a world that desperately needs you. So let's join with New Leaf and everything that's going on. Let's meet the needs of the hurting and the hungry and the broken right here in Surprise and then to the uttermost parts of the earth. Amen. Thank you so much for the privilege of being here.
So years ago, there was a Peanuts cartoon strip where Lucy demanded that Linus change the TV channel. What makes you think you can walk in here and just take over? Linus asks. These 5 fingers, Lucy responds. Individually, they're nothing. But when I curl them into a single unit, they form a weapon that is terrible to behold. Friends, there are some amazing churches in Surprise. There are some amazing pastors, and I thank God for each one of you. But I wonder, like, what would happen if we came together as a single unit and formed a weapon that would rock this city for Jesus Christ? Well, the good news is we don't have to wonder anymore, thanks to churches like Reveal and others that are beginning to do this in our community. So on October 24th, just a few months ago, the Gathering, I'm John Lipinski from the Gathering, we were out there on that field, Mark Coronado Park, and we had 2 gatherings. We had a Friday gathering for Veterans Day, and then we had a Sunday gathering. And Sunday, after a long weekend of ministry, yeah, Skip was there, and thanks for coming out. But after a long weekend of ministry, we're tired, and it was awesome. God showed up and met a lot of new people, and it was awesome. Well, 20 guys show up, young people, right when we're getting ready to tear down. 20 guys show up, and they're from Revealed Church. And they said, we just heard what God's doing here in the community and through this church. We just want to be a part of it. Can we help tear down? I said, let me get this straight. You want to help on the hot sun for 2.5 hours, tearing all this stuff down after you've been at church all day? And they said, yeah, we just want to be. I said, sure. So fast forward to December 23rd, Christmas Eve of this year. Right out here, we did a service. We took a risk and did an outside service right here in the concourse. 1,200 people from the community showed up. But what was more impressive than 1,200 people was the 20 people from Reveal who came back and helped set up and tear down. Made me examine, would I do that? Would I send people to another church to help be a part of what God's doing? Friends, I think God's calling us as pastors to come together and form a single unit that is powerful. But friends, that's risky. That involves some risk. That doesn't line up with our growth strategy. It doesn't line up with our methodology or our metrics. And you know what? The truth is, they might like your church better than mine, and we might lose people. But might I remind you that they were never ours to lose. They always belonged to Him. And so I just want to share a principle today that I teach my team. And it comes from Ecclesiastes 11:1, and that is, let's risk the ocean. Coming together as a single unit, let's be honest, it doesn't happen a lot because it's risky. Risk the ocean. Ecclesiastes 11:1. Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. The truth is, when you take a risk, when you ship your grain, Solomon's saying, when you ship that across the ocean, there's pirates, and it might get stolen. There's storms that might sink the ship. But you know what? When you take a risk, when you step out in faith, you may receive 1,000-fold on your investment. It's kind of like Matthew 14. Remember when there's 11 guys in the boat, the storm is going, only one guy risked the ocean. And you say, well, yeah, but John, he failed because he took his eyes off Jesus. Well, you know what? He failed on his feet. He didn't fail on his butt in the boat. And some of us, we like to hunker in our bunker, right? And we're so complacent, we're ready just to say, you know what? I don't want to take the risk. Friends, our biggest gatherings we've ever had weren't at the gathering. They were at a park. They were at a concourse stadium. And I guess what I'm saying is, and I ask this of myself, are we a come and see church or a go and be church? Because when I read this book, they got out there and they took the gospel to the people. We don't have a building yet as a church, 3 years, and maybe that's the greatest blessing, because I think sometimes our greatest luxury, our building, becomes our greatest liability. And here's a news flash. Some people, after COVID, they ain't coming back. They ain't coming back. And so we gotta be innovators. We gotta take the gospel to them. And I know the online presence is a big deal, but beyond the online presence, we gotta be innovators. We gotta find new ways to take the gospel to them. Albert Georgi said that innovation is seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else thought. And let me close by saying that our church was built on a risk. After being at a church here, an awesome church here in our community for 7 years, I went through a church transition, and I was ready to move on. I wanted to get out of town and just go, start something new. And so I interviewed at a church in the spring of 2018 called Paradise Alliance Church. It was a church of 1,200 people in Northern California, right there by Chico. It was a beautiful job, beautiful. There's 250 candidates. I was the finalist. It had to be God after all. It was called Paradise. And so I interviewed. It took my family out there. It was 8 days. Went out there on the interview, preached twice. It was awesome. And on the last day, that Sunday, they offered me the job and officially called me to be their pastor at Paradise Alliance Church. I said, I need 3 days to think about it. Because inside, God was calling me to take a risk. Inside, God was saying, plant a church in Surprise. Didn't make any sense. And so I went home, I prayed about it. I called on my pastor friends, and they said, take the job. Don't plant a church. You know the statistics. You know the odds about planting a church. So 3 days later, they called back Paradise, and I said, I'm not taking the job. I'm going to plant a church. They said, you're going to do what? I said, I'm going to plant a church. And so on September 29th, 2018, I officially launched the Gathering Church. 40 days later, on November 8th, 2018, Paradise, California, burned to the ground in 13 hours in what would be the costliest fire in California history and the greatest natural disaster in the world of 2018. If you want to watch the Netflix documentary, it's called Fire in Paradise. Here's my point. Sometimes your risk is your rescue. For me, it rescued me from a fire, but it rescued me from something much greater. It rescued me from settling for a clearer path to a lesser goal. And friends, whether you're a politician or you're a pastor, so often we default to safety. We settle for a clear path to a lesser goal. And I think God is calling us to take a risk, to come together and form a weapon that is terrible to behold. Let's risk the ocean together.
Well, good morning. Even this Canadian has freezing cold blood right now, so just bear with me, okay? My name is Brad Ogden, and I serve as the campus pastor at CCV. Surprise. And as a new member to the community, our family moved here about a month ago. I took this role about 4 or 5 months ago. I was in the Valley at another campus. And let me just say, this is encouraging. This is inspiring to me as a pastor. So Skip and Raymond, thank you guys wherever you are. I just think that there's so much value in us as pastors and as leaders in the community, along with government officials and school officials, to come together. It's powerful. You know, I mentioned this during our Christmas Eve service to our congregation as we were kind of sending them out for the night. And I just said, the light of Christ shines brightest in the darkness. And that is us. Like, that is us in this community coming together and making that a reality. Because the reality is this: we're on the same team. You know, we are on the same team. And Syria, I know you're trying to talk to me. But I think that we lose sight of that sometimes. But in this today, and I just want to talk through a little bit of where we're at with CCV and what makes this a reality. But the reality, honestly, is that CCV started 40 years ago. Damari, guess where? In a living room. Okay, so this guy just planted a church a few months ago. And let me just tell you, like, and encourage you, brother, man, it is awesome hearing stories of salvation, hearing stories of growth, starting in a living room. Keep going, dude. We're cheering you on, all right? But powerful. And I would just say this. There's something about noticing when God is moving and just joining in and jumping in and going, right? I don't really have anything new to share because God is unifying us already. Some of the things I want to talk about, we've already talked about, and I'm just going to reinforce them because it's what is God, I believe, is speaking to us today. The last 2 years, we're not the same community as we were 2 years ago. And I haven't been a part of surprise, but we're not the same people. People are acting differently, right? Schools are different. Communities are different. Churches are different. People are different. My wife and I were joking. My wife, Sarah, and I, we have 3 kiddos. And, trying to parent through a pandemic, who do we call? No one's done it. We love our parents, but we can't ask them for advice in this. Everyone's operating different. The church is no exception from that reality. Someone just mentioned, like, people aren't coming back. It's true. We are not having the same return. And this isn't unique to Surprise. It's not unique to Phoenix. It's across the country. People, where we're at as a church, are trying to understand and figure out the social habits of people because they're just different. And so we're trying to understand where people are and to go and meet them right there. Online, it's here to stay. It's an amazing tool. We're reaching people online, like several other have said, that we've never reached before. But if you go back to Hebrews, wherever Skip is, we were designed to be in community. We were designed to meet. And so as CCV looks forward, we're not going to stop meeting in person. We're going to stop gathering as a community of believers because that's what we were truly designed to do. But here's the big challenge I think that our leadership has pushed down for us, because as we look forward, we need to have a godly perspective. That word perspective is so key. We look back at the 2 years, and we had somebody come in and talk to us from a leadership perspective, and they wanted to say how leading our words could be. What I mean by that, if I was to look at you, what's your name? Abigail. If I'm look at Abigail and go, man, like, these 2 years have been hard, right? If that's how I enter a conversation, like, has it been tough? You look tired. Like, man, you must be worn out from all the good work you've been doing. Man, it's hard. What is she thinking? She's thinking it's hard. It's a perspective shift versus us looking back and being like, man, God has been moving these last 2 years. If a community, it's fitting that we're on a baseball team. As a Christian community, we are no longer the home team. Right? If you look at the population, I'll just say even of Phoenix, 4.7 million people, there are more unbelievers in our city than there are believers. And that's consistent across the country. And some people will look at that and go like, gosh, we're losing. Guess what? The light shines brightest in the darkness. So we have an opportunity here, probably the best opportunity at all, because there are more unbelievers, more people that don't know Jesus. So our opportunity is greater. It's all about perspective. And so I think for us, as we look forward, I just want to read one verse or one section of Scripture. John was just talking about this. Ephesians 4. He's talking about unity in the church. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. We may do things differently. That's okay. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body, one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, one Father of all, who is over all and through it all and in all. So we are one. Let's continue to partner together, because our community will only be strongest when our churches partner with schools, when our churches partner with communities, when our churches partner with government. So proud to serve with you guys. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all. Thanks for welcoming me to the community.
All right, real quick, give all of our speakers a quick round of applause. They did a good job. You know, when we're preparing for this event, one thing that God brought to my reminder is a story of the disciples out fishing all night. They're out fishing all night, didn't catch jack, you know, there's nothing happening. And these guys were experienced. I mean, they've been out there thousands of times, and all that experience, nothing came in. And then Jesus walks up and tells them, go over there, cast your nets over there. And they did, and the abundance came in, right? So all of us, you know, we've all done church a certain way for a long time. We've done all the programs, all the conventions. We've done all of that. But I believe the church is coming into a new season to where we need to start really listening where God is directing us, because that's where the harvest is going to be. No longer are those programs of old and that is going to suffice. It's going to be the direction from Christ. And that's kind of the theme that we kind of had today is, you know, where has our church come from? Where are we today? And where is God leading us into the future? You know, I was reminded this morning, Pastor Marks from 14:6. Where are you at, Pat? Right there. He wrote a couple books. One of them is a great book called Crash. I'm a Royal Ranger when I was a kid, so it's an adventure book. I enjoyed it. And then there's another book that I don't remember what the title was, but it talks about creation and evolution, and the differences between them. And I was thinking, you know, why can't we as a church body start maybe asking him to come to our church and teach our youth or teach our people in church, you know, where is the facts and the differences between those two? That way the truth can get into our people. But it's from a pastor in the community. It's not from, you know, someone from somewhere else. So those are some kind of things that was like, you know, for unity, where we can all work together to help each other as a church community. So for the next about 10 minutes, and then we'll end this, we're going to pray over the mayor before we leave. But there's some handouts on your table. And on those handouts, of course, we have some instructions for your networking and talking before we started, and then some for right now. So we have 1, where your church came from, 2, where your church is at now, and 3, where is your church going in the future? The idea behind this really is to have just kind of a point of conversations at your table so you guys can share, and maybe, you know, maybe God has given an idea to one pastor, but it needs to be implemented at your church. And so a way to just building relationships, that's what this is all about. And before you leave today, again, 2 instructions will make this successful. If you find 2 people that you have not met before and plan to meet for coffee, and you get bonus points if you go to Spencer's place. I'm just saying, all right? And then the second piece on that is find an elected official and commit to praying for them. Because like Congresswoman Lesko says, I mean, they're under a tremendous amount of pressure. So with that, let's take the next 10 minutes, kind of communicate at your table. Let me see. Let's do 10 minutes, and then we'll do a couple minutes if anybody wants to share. We have a couple of mics, and then we'll share a couple, and then we'll bring the mayor back up and pray over him before we leave. All right.
your promises are yes and amen. If you said it, we believe it. Father of kindness, you have poured out grace. Brought me out of darkness, you have filled me with peace. Giver of mercy, you're my help in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing. Let's sing aloud. Faithful you are, oh yeah. Faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. Sing it loud. All your promises. Oh yeah, yeah. All your second verse. Beautiful Savior, you have brought me near. You pulled me from the ashes. You have broken every verse. Blessed Redeemer, you have set this captive free. Lord, I can't help but sing. We say, faithful you are. Hey, faithful forever you will be. Yeah, faithful, yeah. We believe and we know that all your promises are yes. Say, faithful, faithful you are. Your word, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. All your promises, yeah. So your promises, yeah. The remainder of your word, we have confidence in what you say, what you say. Our sure foundation is what you say, it's what you say. Our hope is built on nothing less but what you say, what you say. I can't believe, cause what you say is true, yes, what you say, what you say. You say I'm healed, I'm delivered, I'm free, that is what you say, is what you say. I'm a lender, not a borrower, that is what you say, is what you say, yeah, yeah.
All right, let's get back to our tables real quick. We're just going to have a quick takeaway. So what we're going to do, we got Lynn. Lynn, raise your hand over on this side, on the north side. So if your table has a couple items that you would like to share, something that you guys learned this morning, raise your hand and Lynn will get you on this side. And John, John's right back there. So John will get you on that side. So raise your hand. Hold on. John's giving the mic to Pastor Marks.
What am I supposed to?
Hello? Is it on?
Check, check, check.
Bill's coming to the rescue. Please, guys, grab your seats real quick. Just a couple more minutes.
Check, 1, 2.
John, you have anyone over here? I mean, Lynn, anybody over here?
1, 2, check, check, check.
Hey, I'll bring him this mic. I'll give him this mic.
Check, check, check.
Try this guy. There you go.
Does it work?
No, he's got to turn this. Don't turn it on.
It's on. Check. Whoa. Hey, Mark's on.
The thing about it is you hand a pastor a mic and bad things can happen. So my impressions, I'm impressed. That's what I would say. I'm impressed. I got to meet some new people, and personally, I'm just excited about the opportunity to connect. You know, I don't know what else to say, but the time is short. How many of you knew that? How many of you know the time is short? I mean, one way or another, we all have our different opinions on eschatology and things like that, but the time is short. All you have to do is just look around. The time is short. And we need rather to be together than apart. I know we've got our own things going. I know we've got our own, you know, movements that we're a part of and things like that, but the ultimate movement is that we are servants of Yeshua, and that we are going to glorify him and advance his kingdom. And so when we get together and we share opportunities, you know, I've had an opportunity to send some of our folks to go, and we went over and prayed with the gathering when they were getting started and stuff like this, and getting connected with all these other churches. That just moves my heart, and I just wanted to say thanks. This microphone got shoved at me. I was not supposed to be speaking, so who do I give it back to?
All right, Lynn, you got someone over here? Someone over here that wants a quick takeaway?
Check one. Oh, there we go.
Russ, are you stirring?
Come on, somebody must. Hi guys, I'm Israel. One thing that I've talked to about just with a lot of our young men that we have even at our church, and just as kind of a universal topic I talk with my brothers and sisters, is that every growing man, every growing church, every growing leader needs four things. You need people who are walking the same path, who are walking with the same intentionality, who are around the same kind of, who have that same vision next to you. You need those who have walked ahead of you and who are where you want to be, as far as whether it's congregation-wise, whether it's leadership-wise, whether it's whatever that may look like. And then you need those behind you holding you accountable to leading and sticking to what it is that you've called yourself to do, or what God has called you to do within the community. So Damari, I know we've talked in the past, man, so much love for what you do, bro. And the fact that you've been able to connect even with those walking in your position. You know you got me, man, whenever it comes to, if you guys need help tearing down, need help setting up, I got men who are ready to go and help you out and build whatever God is doing there. We got men who, and the fact that you created connections with men who are walking ahead of you to get encouragement from a campus pastor that say, man, we're rooting for you. And then you have those little ones behind you that are looking up to you and seeing what you're doing, man. So I just wanted to say that because, yeah, I felt yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys had a great day.
All right, let's get one more. You have, right here, John.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Joanne Osborne, and representative of some of this area, but I'm also the chairman of health in the legislature. And I have a challenge to every one of you, especially our pastors, that Monday I did a 3-hour hearing on the state of drugs in Arizona. And as you all know, we've had issues of drugs and alcohol and mental health. And the Lord truly is in my heart and upon each and every one of you, because as we're dealing with these issues of $1 billion in sales of marijuana, of $14 billion of sales of alcohol in 1 year, we've got hurting people. And we know they need the Lord more now than ever. And you are on those front lines. And so I challenge you to know whatever you can to find out about drugs, because it's going to be affecting some of the people that you come in contact with. And you need to know the background of how these things are affecting the people that you're you're coaching and that you're bringing to the Lord. And I thank you for the job that you're doing there, because we are on a battleground. And I'm just privileged and honored to be here with each of you, because I know you're doing that work. And I thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Hall, go ahead and come on up, and Pastor Ross from Radiant will pray over the mayor, and then that will conclude our program. You guys are more than welcome to stay and talk, network, and exchange information at the end.
Heavenly Father, we just lift up this man to you right now, Lord, that you have created him for a time such as this. So, Lord, I pray that you would bless his leadership, that your word would guide every step that he takes, Lord, that he would be blessed with the power of your Holy Spirit to give him wisdom and discernment to lead in this next year like never before, Father. That during a time such as this, Lord, you have created him, that you would increase his territory, Lord, increase the influence that he has, that he can lead like no other, that he can be lead in truth and mercy like no other, God. We just praise you. We thank you for the man that you have created here. I ask that you would just bless him, that you would touch him, that your face would shine upon him. It's in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys. Hey, where's that sign-in sheet at? Okay, the sign-in sheet's right here. Please, we still need people to sign up for praying at council and for National Day of Prayer. Thank you, guys.
If you said I'm a son, I trust what you say. What you say. If you say they are daughters, I will trust what you say. What you say. If you say we're children of a Most High, I trust you say. Yeah. If you said my mother will be healed, I will trust. Yeah. If you said my father will be delivered from alcohol, I'll trust you. Yeah. If you trust my sister will be delivered from depression, I say, yeah. You will keep all your promises. We trust. We trust. We trust what you say. What you say. What you say. We trust. We believe. We stand on. We will win. What you say. What do you say? So glad you're still speaking. So glad you're still speaking. You're still revealing and you're still fulfilling.